Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the summary for the day of 1082 for the 9th of February. We're going to go with the Kursk front again. From the Kursk front, we have multiple geolocation of Russian forces starting to use FPV drone hitting Ukrainian positions in the rear. So definitely the Ukrainians have not given up on Kursk, which this strikes in the rear position might suggest more forces is being gathered and are also continuing to be moving into the Kursk region, which is why they are attracting all these strikes. And this strike is not just within Sumy, but also within the Kursk region. We have multiple drone locations as well. There's airstrike at Lebedevka, there's FPV drone strike at Zazulevka, and there is also this FPV drone strike within Suja itself. I remember I reported this. Okay, give me a second. Yeah, I grayed them out. So anyway, we go into the western flank first. At the western flank, geolocation of Russian forces in multiple locations around Darino and Svetiklovo. These various geolocations that shows that the Russians are on the offensive in the western flank, capturing some grounds over in the east of Darino, as well as in the north of Svetiklovo. So this advance is a very interesting, because what we understand is that the Ukrainians are on the offensive, right? But somehow the Russians are capturing ground in this region. So this is definitely a bit of an unusual situation that we will probably expect that the Ukrainians are getting more ground than the Russians, since the Ukrainians are supposedly on the offensive. So Svetiklovo, entire northern side, has been compromised by the Russian forces. So this Svetiklovo might be seeing the end very soon, maybe in a week's time, if the Russians continue to fight while the Ukrainians put up a good fight. But yeah, this is getting really bad. Ukrainian forces at Lebedevka is getting airstrike, so things are definitely not looking good. And the Russians are also allegedly pushing towards Lebedevka, Yuzhny, as well as Nikorsky. The lack of reporting about Loknia is a bit suspicious, because we have Yuzhny over here, but there's no mention of Loknia. I wonder if this is a sign that the Russians have already taken Loknia. This is unclear at this moment. Over in the northern flank, we have not much reporting. Ukrainians actually went on the counter-attack at Krylenkoe, capturing some grounds according to Deep State UA. So this is a Ukrainian claim. This is not confirmed capture just yet, whilst the Russians are pushing at Nikorsky. Everything else around here, from Kostitsa, Pokrovsk Front Pogrebki, Novaya Sorokina, all this is not mentioned. So this capture is mainly these two forest or windbreaks or forest formation in this area here. So this allows the Ukrainians to secure the security on the western part of Staraya, Sorokina, and Nikolaevka. So let's see how this continues to play out. There's a lot of exchange of grounds between the two sides. So that's very interesting. Over on the east, Sudzha or eastern flank, we have the mentioning of Ivashkovsky, Martinovka. Shelling is reported at 1Y Kanazi and 2Y Kanazi. Bogdanovka was also mentioned, Zalezhenka, Rubashkina, Gocharovka, Sudzha, and there's attack on Merne. So this is the current situation. This is probably also shelling. This is also probably shelling. This is also probably shelling. So just take this with a pinch of salt. These arrows may not actually be ground offensives. And then over in the southern flank, there is, as mentioned just now, the shelling at Rubashkina, Zaleshenka, Sudzha, Kotarovka, and Merne. There is also no attack on Kamalkov. However, Ukrainian forces are geolocated in new positions east of Kamalkov, confirming Ukrainians have straightened the front line at Kamalkov, whereas shelling is also mentioned at Gogolevka. So another geolocation, this geolocation, the FPV drone strike as well on engineering vehicle. So Ukrainians are definitely trying to reinforce their defensive positions in the southeast of Sudzha. So let's see how this goes. This is definitely taking forever for the Russians to retake their own grounds, which is very interesting. So many theories, right? It can be like the Russians are creating a kill box, or maybe the Russians are just lousy. Maybe the North Koreans cannot fight well. No, there are so many narrative around the Kursk front. Is just crazy. So we move on to the Kharkiv front. At the Kharkiv front, we have the mention of Malik Brokkoli by the Russian Defense Ministry, Snelnikove by the Russian Defense Ministry as well, and Voschans by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So there is some attacks in this region here. So nothing particularly stand out except for Snelnikove by the Russian Defense Ministry, but they did mention its fire damage, so it could be just some shelling on Ukrainian positions around Snelnikove's forest, but that's about it. Outside of that, we move into the Voreshna front. At the Voreshna front, in the northern flank, there is geolocation of FPV drone strike on Ukrainian positions at Kolizyazi. So many Kolizyazis in not Singapore, I want to say Singapore, in Ukraine as well. And there is fighting reported at Fakholivka, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So this area here, there's always this suspicion that Fakholivka is already taken by the Russian forces, but fighting is still being reported. There is no confirmation or declaration on the Russian side saying that they have captured Fakholivka. So we're going to leave this at is. And over in the Kupiansk front, at the Kupiansk front, we have the mention of Holubivka. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, we haven't seen Holubivka since half a month ago or almost a month ago. Petropavlivka is mentioned by both Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and Stepova Novoselivka is by the Ukrainians. So the Russians are making some actions, mainly over in the northern side. They are making some pushes. But so far, strategically, nothing very, very serious have happened. Over in the Borova front, we have the usual of a lot of places getting mentioned. Zarizove by the Ukrainians, Bohuslavka by both, Novaya Kurylakivka is by the Ukrainians. Then the Russians talk about Novoplatonivka and Lozova and Zelenehai, which is also mentioned by the Ukrainians. Zerelny is interesting. It was mentioned as Zovnevoye, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. But this area is actually known to be taken by the Russians, so it's a bit unusual to see this name pop out. However, Kopanki was mentioned by the Ukrainians, Novosehievka by the Ukrainians, and the Russians mentioned Novoyehorivka. When you put everything together, it looks quite ridiculous. There's Russian attacks in all the places. They're attacking in all different directions. And yeah, we do not know exactly, how to perceive this, because it looks very exciting. Wow, so many arrows, so many big offensive, but it could be just mass harassment, like they're just tickling them all over the place. So that's all from the Borova front. We move further south to the Liman front. At the Liman front, we have fighting reported over at Novolyubivka, according to the Ukrainians. Kolozyazi was mentioned by the Ukrainians, Yampolivka is by the Ukrainians, and Ryba, the pro-Russian source. So there is all these attacks coming in these various directions. So strategically, nothing much changed. We definitely know that the focus now is Yampolivka after the conquest of Terny, and as the Russians are pushing southward from Terny to put pressure on Yampolivka. And the Russians is already in the north of Bilohorivka, so definitely this crossing is now in danger. So this is the current situation in this sector. Shelling, Yampil was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry, probably shelling reports. Serbianka was also mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry in the Sivers front. Sivers was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry along with Zvenivka. Geolocation of Russian forces on the east of Verkhovno-Kanyamske and along the heavy entrenchment was noted, but that didn't change the front line. But that just confirmed the Russians are there. So so some attacks or shelling at Serbianka and attack towards Sivers and Zvenivka. So that's all from the Sivers front. Moving into the Bakhmut front, at the northern flank of the Bakhmut front, we have the mention of Zaliniansky by the Russians, Minkivka as well. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Orikhovo-Vasilevka. So this is a bit interesting. We have very little information of fighting in this region, and suddenly Orikhovo-Vasilivka is now announced as captured by the Russians. So this could also mean that the attack on Minkivka might be coming actually from the Orikhovo-Vasilivka region. And with the capture of this also might suggest that the Russians may have advanced along the highway region because this secures the eastern and northeastern flank. So a bit of a mystery right now for this region. So let's wait for footages to come out and some geolocators to do their job to help to confirm this information. Chasivia was mentioned by the Russian and Ukrainians as usual. The Battle of Chasivia continues with very little fanfare. We do not know what the hell is happening. And in the southern flank, we have only the mention of Petechne by the Russian Defense Ministry, with the Russians making some tactical expansion in this region. So we move on to the Toretsk front. At the Toretsk front, we have interesting developments. We have the mention of new places, but first Druzhba was mentioned by the Russians, Kursk by the Ukrainians, also at Toretsk. Skibinivka was mentioned by the Ukrainians, and Russians mentioned Petrivka. We have the naming of Pentamelanivka by the Russian Defense Ministry. So this is the first time in a long time, in a month, that we've seen reports of Pentamelanivka was mentioned. So Russians are focusing on this region, Druzhba and Petrivka, whilst the Ukrainians are saying that the Russians are pushing at Skibinivka, Toretsk, and Krimsk. So, but these two areas is already declared as captured by the Russian side. So, yeah, so take it the way you want it. And of course, Pentamelanivka. But I think this is not a real offensive. I think this is just skirmish. So that's all. Over in the northern flank of the Pokrovsk front, we have the Ukrainians counterattack over at Vodyane Druhi. They claim to have retaken some grounds around here, which is kind of weird because it was only a Russian claim. Then somehow Deep State UA mapped it as like a firm Ukraine capture from Russian territory, but everywhere around it is just gray zone. So a little bit weird. Otherwise, the Ukrainians did mention the Russians are attacking Vodyane Druhi, Zelene Pole, Malinivka is mentioned by Deep State UA because of the frontline change, and Yelezavetivka by the Ukrainians. So we zoom in. So in this sector, the Russian forces have taken this and another barn or warehouse just off this highway exchange. And from here, I think the Russians can now take the highway exchange because they are now close enough. The Ukrainians are counterattacking at Vodyane Druhi. Russians are allegedly attacking it, and they're moving towards Malinivka. So that's the current situation. If we zoom in, you're going to see that this is actually really close right now. The highway exchange to this barn or warehouse thingy is only 400 meters. It's really close. And according to the Ukrainian mapping, the Russians have taken also some of the tree lines around here. So they are going to storm in and take the highway exchange and make it totally unusable. So that seems to be the case right now. What is this interesting? There is this like scribble around here. That's so funny. So anyway, that's it from the northern flank. We move on to the Minokhrad sector. At the Minokhrad sector, we have the mention of Horodivka by the Russians, Promin by the Ukrainians, Minokhrad by the Russians. The Chansky, there's a counter attack being reported by Deep State UA, and then there's also mentioning of Pokrov by the Russian Defense Ministry. So all in all, we have fighting at Horodivka, Promin, Minokhrad towards Pokrov, and the Ukrainian counterattack over at the Chansky. And there is some frontline changes or claims from the Ukrainian side of this Ukrainian success, according to the Ukrainians. So this is a Ukrainian claim. Ukrainian claim. I write wrong. So Ukrainian claim. So the Ukrainian forces claim to have taken the entire northern part as well as the eastern half of the Chansky. So this is a Ukrainian claim. This cannot be confirmed just yet. We first have this announcement of capture since the 6th. So it's 1 month ago. So the Ukrainian forces counterattack. So let's see whether this can be corroborated. And we move on to the Pokrovsk sector. At the Pokrovsk sector, we have the mention of Pischane by Ryba and Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Kotline was mentioned by Ryba and the Russians. and Udashny is by the Ukrainians and the Russians, and Uspenivka by the Russians. Ukrainians mentioned Novo-Alexandrivka. So other than the Pokrovsk, as mentioned earlier, we have fighting reported at Puszczany, Kotline, Udashny, Uspenivka, and Novo-Alexandrivka. However, the Russian forces geolocated northeast of Vovkove. Nothing particularly special about that, but it is the frontline change at Puszczany that is more interesting. This geolocation is based on the footage that came out on the 7th. So this is not particularly a latest information, but it does show that the Ukrainians have a much more advanced control of the town. And this actually means that the Ukrainians may actually have almost full control of the town. But tentatively, the latest information from the pro-Russian sources is that the Russians are continuing to attack the Ukrainians in the industrial zone of Puszczany. They said that the Ukrainian forces are currently cut off from reinforcement and squeezed into the ruins of a local mine, which might be suggesting that the Ukrainians have now stuck here and the Russians have retaken everything of this residential area. I can't know. No, we don't have any information to prove that's the case. So that's just the Russian perspective of this situation. We move. So Muravka was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. Although this is a bit far from the front line, I suspect that this might just be shelling reports. Over in the southern flank of the Pokrovsk front, Zaporizhzhia was mentioned by Deep State, and as well as Yasinove was mentioned by the Russians. So the Russians are still pushing in these two directions, but it seems like the attention is moving elsewhere. There's a lot lesser arrows around here. Maybe the Ukrainians are doing a very good defense around here and the Russians are giving up. So over in the Andriivka front, we have the mention of Andriivka by the Raiba and Ukrainians. Udashny by Raiba, Deep State, the Ukraine. And then on the east of Zelenivka was mentioned by Deep State UA, where they say that the Russians have some partial success in this sector. Ulakli was mentioned by Raiba. Constantinople is by Raiba and the Ukrainians, and Rozliv is by the Russian source, Raiba. So Russians are attacking Andriivka. The battle of Andriivka continues. The Russians are pushing out of Dashny, pushing north of Sukiali. They are putting pressure on Ulakli, pushing towards Constantinople and Rozliv. So strategically, nothing changed around here. So the lack of change, of course, is very suspicious. So let's wait for more information. And after Andriivka, over at Velika Novosilka, we have the mention of Novo-Charitovaty, Bulatske, as well as Novosilka by the Russian Defense Ministry, reporting that the Russians are pushing up north in various locations. But that's all. The lack of frontline changes, so didn't really tell us anything. So basically, we do not know what the hell is happening. So let's wait. Over at the Zaporizhzhia front, there is some interesting reports. So Kuyapole was mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry. Novo-Andriivka is by the Russians as well. And they also mentioned Malishubaki, Kayamske, and shelling at Stepnokhursk. So this is a lot of Russian attacks in a single day in multiple locations. So this is interesting to me. Geolocation of Ukrainians getting airstrike at Malatomashka was noted. And so the front line around here continues to be very tense, mainly on the west of Orikhiv. But still, it doesn't feel like there's some very major offensive operations at this moment. So we just have to wait. Moving on to the Kherson front. At the Kherson front, we have shelling being reported at Berislav as well as Odrado, Kamyanka. So these two areas around Kozatske was shelled. However, the big news is the Kherson front, where the Russian forces has been geolocated opposite the Dniprovsk at this railway bridge. And with this geolocation, the Russian forces basically confirmed to have taken the entire island around this Konka River. So this is a massive amount of ground taken by the Russian forces, as the Russians are now slowly pushing back towards Dniprovsk. is it meaningful for the Russians to push in this direction? I honestly not sure, but it definitely does give some respite for Pischanivka and Zablava, or these various towns around here like Oleshki, because at least with this securing the front lines a bit further, that they can have some rest rather than fearing that the Ukrainians may sneak in and conduct sabotage mission in the rear positions. That will be disastrous. Although so far they haven't been successful, and I want to say this area is just super messy. This, just look at this forest. This is so unusual, so weird. Yeah, and this is like desert. Anyway, there is desert in Crimea. Like this is a desert. Like this is a real desert. Oleshki sands. Like no joke, this is a desert. Like in the middle of Ukraine. So it's a super weird. Anyway, that's it. So this is the summary, all the situation report, all the SITREP for the day of 1082 for the 9th of February. Press the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next update.